Arise, minions, and batten down the hatches as we leave behind the safety of the Humblewood and sail down the Talmgrim coast to the blood-soaked waters of the Bay of Belush. Join us in this coastal trade port of the Serpent Domain as we begin to assemble our would-be pirate crew for this brand new D&D 5e podcast, Dark Fortunes.
Hi, I'm V Muse, and I'm playing Sionnach MacTyre, the level 1 Vulpin fighter.
Hi, my name is Johnny. I'm the Dungeon Master. Welcome to the Dark Fortunes podcast. You can feel the warm breeze coming across the water. The setting is a tropical one. The city where the ship that you are on right now is docked is known as the Brother. It is one of the cities affectionately known as the Twins. That is sort of the port of call, the entryway, the gateway to what is known as the Domain. The Brother represents where all trade and commerce, all seekers of lore and of pleasure come to. Sitting on this ship, you are able to kind of take in sort of the city that stands out in front of you. As you look in towards the city of the Brother, you can see the docks at first with their warehouses, sort of butted up against sort of the ocean. And you see the wharfs and various longshoresmen, kind of moving back and forth, carting various cargo from various ships. As you kind of look along sort of the wharf itself and taking in the other ships, you can see that some of the ports are some of the docking berths are empty, but most of them are either dealing with the arrival of a ship, the departing of a ship, or the unloading or loading of a ship. And as you're beginning to kind of take in this situation, you hear the cawing of gulls above you as you kind of take in and look up. And you can see that the sky is beginning to change from its bright blues going into purples as the sun is beginning to set and the breeze is coming in, carrying in that warm, salty air. With a bit of a chill occasionally as you feel the fog, maybe half a mile offshore, just sort of sitting there and beginning to creep towards sort of the land. You've been here for a couple of days, and as you are sort of taking in the situation, you're sort of given a moment to begin to reflect. How do we find you?
I'd be standing closest to the most open port just to get near the water and hearing the lapping of the waves hitting the beams of the docks. And I'd pause for a moment and take a deep breath, getting that deep draw of sea air into my lungs before I have to go into the city itself and deal with the noises and the sound of the city. I don't like being in crowded places as much. I'm far more used to being on ships, but I know it's a necessary evil to wander amongst the crowds and get the information that I need and perform little tasks that are given to me throughout my days with the Pirate Queen.
You hear the calls as the sun continues to creep down for the day's workers to be done, as the longshoresmen are beginning to carry off the cargo from the last of the ships and make their way to the various sort of warehouses and storage areas where they will be disassembled as cargo containers, pulled apart and their various goods kind of pushed off, into various directions into the city that is the Brother. And as you're kind of watching the last of the sun just sort of beginning to creep down towards the horizon, you see a ship beginning to set sail, going off into the night, and you feel a yearning for just a second, calling you back to the ocean, calling you back to the waves. But as you turn back towards the city, you find yourself sort of assessing the sort of the greater task in front of you. What task is in front of you?
I've gotten word of a nice little trinket that I need to procure and need to meet up with an old friend. At least that's according to the instructions that I got. So I'm hoping this will be a quick in and out so I can get back onto a ship and back out to where I far more prefer to be. So I will pull my hat down a little bit. It's a black hat and it's sort of pinned up to one side, and make sure that my coat's pulled around me, doing my best to hide my white coat of fur because I know it sort of stands out more than the typical Vulpin ruddy red coat. And I'll just sort of scan around, seeing if there's any sort of open alleyway that'll lead me into the thick of the city to get to the place where I was instructed to meet my contact.
You slip into the city proper and make your way from the docks. You are making your way into the market. The market is a huge sort of area of trade with a number of sub-districts. You find yourself stepping into from the warehouses to an area known as the Anchor. And as you kind of step in, the Anchor is this sub-district of the marketplace where all the trade goods coming in from ships and all the work related to the trade of shipwriting, sailing, is all sort of accomplished. And as you're kind of stepping through, you feel the sort of the familiar sort of drag and pull of the speech that you were familiar with, the songs of sea shanties kind of coming from workers, sort of working on sailing, or sewing up a sail, or working on a complex piece of rigging that will then get put back to a ship. Or you hear the workers calling in for the day and talking about the fact that they'll be working towards a dry dock sort of down the way along the docks tomorrow. And you feel that ever constant sort of pull. And of course you hear also occasionally snippets of speech that is not unlike a thieves' cant that the pirates speak. And it makes you long just to go have that conversation and get connected with those individuals. But you're here for the Queen. You're on a mission. You begin to kind of dart your way through as you find yourself going through the rest of the marketplace. And you find yourself going through the Scales. Now, the Scales is another sub-district inside of the marketplace. That is where real commerce begins to happen. You can buy, sell, and trade anything here. Things that come in from the land and the domain, things that come in by ships, all of that is available here. And as you're kind of making your way through, you see that there is a current auction going on for livestock. And as a part of that livestock, there are some Gerbine children that are being, sort of like catered into, sort of pushed into this sort of setting. And there is an auction bid going on specifically for one of the children. And as it pulls your heartstrings, you know that there's something wrong with this. You continue sort of moving on towards, and you find yourself moving from the marketplace into the Vices. As you step in towards the Vices, you find yourself in a series of taverns that is affectionately known as the Brew. The Brew is the sub-district of the Vices where you will find inns and taverns, places for a bath, to catch sleep, anything for those basic needs and those basic pleasures. And you find yourself kind of like looking around, and you see the location that you're supposed to be heading to. It's a tavern by the name of High Noon. And the sun is now creeped below the horizon, and you can see that the purples are beginning to disappear from the sky as it begins to get black. As you're looking around, sort of taking in this particular setting, you see that the street is quite busy. The daytime workers are kind of like moving in and beginning to you know, go for their evening ale, go for their evening meal, go to catch up with friends before going to sleep. You see the sons, the sworn guardians of the brother, a sort of city guard of sorts, moving through the streets, kind of assessing, working very stern. And what catches your eye is one of them sort of breaks off and runs over to what looks like an incredibly large sort of pole, a very, round, thick, almost like the size of a ship mast, but it's almost bigger because as you take a look at it and you watch as a rope drops from somewhere and you begin to look up and you realize that it goes up some 70 feet into the air. And up there, you see what looks to be a crow's nest of some kind. And staring down from that, you see looking a raptor, one of the bird folk, just kind of like assessing the situation, paying attention. And behind him, you can see up there as well, there is a servan, quite large, and he yanks on something. And in your vision, you see one of those sons, those guards, those city guards get pulled up on a rope all the way up very quickly. And you see that it's a gerbine who just kind of like scurries on into the nest and just kind of makes a report. As you hear and smell the calls of the taverns and the foods. What do you do?
I sort of have this sneer on my face as I see the guard go by. It's a knee-jerk reaction at this point. And being the methodical self that I am, I go and I dig that letter out of my left-hand pocket, the lace of my cuff covering my white paw, again, trying to keep that bright white as hidden as possible. And as I open up the parchment, you hear the audible crinkle of it. And I look down at the familiar handwriting, and I see it start in its poetic language, as usual.
Oh, vixen of fortune, how lucky you are to have made my acquaintance. I just so happen to have intimate knowledge of the whereabouts of such a relic. It so happens that a small crate bearing no discernible markings will make its way south, down the Talon Grip to the Twins, where it will be passed from a charming, intelligent, debonair, and yet humble Corvum to a fellow Corvum bearing none of those traits. The meeting will take place at high noon in the brew. What happens to the item afterwards? I have no clue. Your friend in low places, M.E.
And you'll see me smirk slightly, reading those two initials. And I'll fold up the letter and again tuck it back into that left-hand pocket of my overcoat. And seeing the location as named, I'll walk over trying to keep as much to myself as possible, even sort of dodging around anyone who might be crossing my path, and work my way over to the front of the tavern and open the door to let myself in.
As you're stepping towards the tavern, you can see that there is a stairway that leads up to the side, and then there's a door on a second floor. And as you're weaving your way around the patrons who are sort of loitering outside or making their way to and fro, you sort of step inside and immediately are assaulted with a cacophony of sound and smells. You are really overwhelmed. From the corner, you can see a table where a group of workers who have just arrived are beginning to drink their first sort of round of ale and are starting to sing a local shanty that you sort of recognize, but I think that they've gotten some of the lyrics incorrect because it's about the briny bulldog. And next to them, seated in a chair, sleeping in what appears to be a sort of a drunken disposition, is a bard who occasionally wakes up and kind of strums along with the music for just a second and then just kind of falls back asleep. As you kind of take in the rest of the setting, you see that there are tables that are mostly empty, but there are patrons sort of loitering and more coming in as what appears to be the night crowd is coming into this particular place. Behind the counter, you see a barkeep, quite a large servant, well beyond his prime years, just tending the bar. As you see a number of servers kind of making their way, starting to take care of the various patrons. The smells that will assault you are that of ale and sweat and grime, of toil, and of the sweetness of meats, and the briny, sort of brackish sort of smell that comes from working around the sea. And as you kind of settle in and just have this vision of all of this, you realize that you're stepping into what is essentially a sort of locals establishment. This bar, this tavern is more, sort of set up for those who work the docks, those who are tradesmen in the marketplace, those who sort of exist with the city itself, and not something that an out of town, a traveler, sort of a sailor would find themselves in. What do you do?
I'll narrow my bright topaz yellow eyes and take in the crowd a little bit more, and sensing that perhaps it might be best to sort of just wait a little bit and get a better feel for the environment, I'll go up to the bar and take a seat and flag down the bartender and see if I might be able to grab a quick bit of ale, because I am a little bit peckish at this point.
So as you step up, you begin to interact. You hear a door slam off to the side, and out steps a Jermyn, very flamboyant, floppish hat, wearing a saber. Sorry, it was described as a rapier. Wearing a rapier with a rather plain-looking hilt, except for a jewel that sits at the bottom of it, a red jewel, sort of, fitted there perfectly. And as that door slams and the Jermyn comes out, the barkeep kind of looks at you and immediately just sort of drops your drink and moves back in that direction in a hurried fashion. And they are immediately caught up in whispered conversation.
Right away, my one ear will turn towards the conversation, purposely trying to pick up as much as possible, but I'm sort of playing it cool and kind of pretending like I'm looking at the state of my claws. Are they well groomed? Sort of playing the role of a twitless little fop instead of actually being my coy, sly self, picking up more than others may realize.
Give me a perception check.
Okay. Oh, come on. All right. That is going to be a 3 + 2, so a 5.
Just as your ear begins to turn, a loud sort of raptor kind of walks up to the bar and says, Barkeep, where's my ale? As you see the barkeep just sort of look back around and just kind of, wave for a second. And you see a motion of like this. And this loud raptor just continues to bellow as he reaches and he starts talking about his day. Wow, the shipments coming in for today. It was horrible. The beasts were not pulling the wagons at all. And he just begins to go on and tell a tale. And he's looking around, looking for somebody to focus his conversation with.
I have encountered this type many a time. And I slump down even further into myself and pull my black hat down over my brow so it's almost touching the tip of my nose, and even turn my body so it's literally the cold shoulder in his direction, hoping that he doesn't lock on to me, being as I'm sitting at the bar by myself.
He continues his bellowing, kind of looking around, almost, kind of missing you for just a second, giving you a moment of hope as you look back down towards the bar to look at the barkeep and the Jermyn. The Jermyn looks angry, shakes his head, and immediately begins to move out through the crowd and move towards sort of the front door. As as you catch that and you begin to look, the raptor looks down and says, "Well, I've never seen you have unusual clothing. What are you doing here?"
I will let out an audible, I had to see a friend, love. That's all. Not from around here. Told to come and say hello. That's about it.
He kind of turns towards you as you say that. And he looks down and takes in what you say. He says, well, I'm Mel. I know everyone here. Tell me the friend that you're looking for. I love a good story and I love a good reunion, as he takes a big swig of ale.
I'll look him dead in the eye, already forgetting his name. Well, Marty. Meeting my friend Loquacious. He likes to chat about this, that, and the other thing. It's actually how we met. He lucked out that I was actually in a good mood that day and started talking off my ear. Luckily, it stayed put. But normally, that type doesn't exactly get along well with mine. However, Loquacious was quite interesting. Had some funny little stories to tell me, and turns out he's also a sailor. And ever since then, we've agreed to meet at the same time in a new little place to sort of explore the world together in our own way. Good fellow Loquacious. Big fellow Loquacious. Sharp-beaked fellow Loquacious. And I'll narrow my eyes looking at Mel. Is that good enough for you, Marty?
Give me an intimidation check.
All right, that time it was a 15.
It was a 15. He looks at your eyes and he gets really angry. You can see that there is just this like presence of anger that immediately flares up at you getting his name wrong. He really feels like he is a person who knows everybody and he should be respected in such a way. But as he listens to you, he has just enough street smarts to get the sort of subtle undertones of what you're implying and what you're conveying to him. And at the end of it, he just kind of looks at you and he says, "Wow, it's a pleasure to meet you." And he immediately takes his ale and moves away down to the other end of the bar to talk to the barkeep, who now looks incredibly agitated and a little concerned. And when Mel gets down there, the barkeep just kind of, he acknowledges him, hands him more ale, but then immediately disappears into the back of the establishment. The servers are still sort of moving around along the floor of the room, and the Gerbine who he was talking with has disappeared out the door.
All right, so I take mental note of the Gerbine leaving. Definitely taking note of that very interesting rapier. And barkeep is completely out of the main room. What about the rest of the crowd? Are they engaged with each other? Is anyone sort of looking around, taking stock as well, or?
Give me a perception check, because it's gotten quite busy in here.
That's going to be a 21.
Wow. Okay. So, seated off in a corner, very close to the corner where the dock workers are singing that sea shanty about the Barney Bulldog, half sort of hidden by the drunken sort of sleeping and not sleeping bard, is a young Vulpine, about 10 or 11 years old. And he appears to be just assessing the situation in the room, taking it all in. And for a moment, his eyes lock on you, and then he gets scared when he sees that you're looking at him, and he just kind of looks away.
Automatically, that gains my attention, and so I will make my way over slowly and as nonchalantly as possible. But I am keeping my gaze on this small Vulpin for sure. As I walk up to the table and place my hand down on the table and the other on the back of the chair opposite. You're an observant little one, aren't you?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean.
Well, I saw you looking around the room too, and it seems that there's some activity going on, isn't there?
Oh, I'm just an apprentice here. I'm and he points over to somebody at the table, one of the dock workers. I'm an apprentice to that one there. I'm supposed to learn how to do rigging.
An apprentice, that's rather exciting, isn't it? I was one too once upon a time.
It's got its moments. I really should be going. And he starts to get up and tries to move around the table.
You're gonna go already?
I should probably go to bed. He gets drunk and he wakes me up in the middle of the night. I really need to go.
You know there's a trick for that one, right?
A trick?
Put a little chamomile in his beer next time and knock him right out.
Okay. That's
Doesn't do any harm. Gives you a full night's sleep, both of you.
Where do I get chamomile?
Any herbalist should have it. You could even grow it yourself if you're so inclined.
I don't have the skills, and I don't have the coin either. They don't. I don't get any coin.
You're an apprentice and they don't give you a thing. Do you at least get room and board?
They take care of me. That's what I'm told. He's just mean to me.
I've heard stories like that one before too. How old are you?
11.
11.
Yeah. I was apprenticed at 9, and I've been with a couple. I was once considered strong or too strong-headed or but it's they gave me to him, and now and he gets really quiet and becomes incredibly sort of demure and just kind of withdraws into himself as he looks down.
Do I notice any sort of like fresh bruising or anything like that on his form?
Give me an investigation check or maybe a perception check. Whichever you're more skilled at.
They are spot on the exact same, and that's a 10.
All right. You do notice a little bit of sort of scarring on one cheek, just along the jawline, on the lower, the sort of the lower part, just before it sort of folds into the underside of the muzzle. As you're sort of taking this in, you also notice that he's wearing a bandage that gets exposed just under his pant leg at the bottom. But as you're sort of taking this all in, there's something else about this that catches you off guard. He kind of looks up at you, and he kind of looks down, and he looks up at you, and there's something about his eyes that are a bit more knowing than he's letting on.
Right. Take a seat, love. I'll give you some instructions for that chamomile and maybe a couple other things you might find handy. And I'll carefully sit myself down at the chair that's actually more catty corner to where he was initially sitting, as opposed to across from him on the table, facing the other table, not with back to the table, and motion to the chair he was in. I have a feeling you might have a little bit more information that I could use too, if you're up for it. And I'll go into my right-hand pocket and I'll pull out a silver coin and just sort of flip it between my fingers quickly and palm it in my fist, knowing that he's seen it, but it's not been flashed overtly for everyone else to see.
At the sight of the coin, he immediately moves quickly back towards the other side of the table where you are, and grabs his chair and kind of slides it up, and you can see that his tail is kind of like wagging excitedly. It's swishing in such a way that that indicates that he's genuinely sort of excited. And he kind of pulls up and he's like, I'm just I'm just an apprentice dock worker. I just work with the riggings. What would I be able to tell you?
The things you've seen tonight. Very simple. Now, tip number 1 for you, kiddo. Don't wag the tail. Tails are very good at showing emotions. Try and keep it a little bit more still. Make sense?
As you convey this to him, he looks at surprise. He's like, I'm sorry. And he kind of shuffles a little bit in his seat and he gets uncomfortable at first. And his tail, continues to swish at first, but then it begins to kind of slow. You mean like that? As it kind of settles and gets still. But what happens when I can't control it when I'm excited? It's fun. What do I do?
It's very easy, but it'll take practice. You want to sort of slow it down a little bit, and my white tail will stick up, and instead of frantically waving back and forth, it does this slow little swish and sway, almost brushing my shoulders from right to left. So you start it up high a little bit, and then just let it fall shortly down and wrap it round your feet like so. And as I'm saying this, my tail is slowly working its way lower and lower and lower, and then neatly tucks itself around, and the tip of my tail sits at the top of my boots. And I just sort of raise an eyebrow and smile at him with a toothy fang grin. See? You still get to wag it. It's just a little bit more calm.
And so as he tries to do that, it's gross movements at best as his tail kind of flops up and it's just all over the place. But you can see that he kind of slowly gets control of it as it's tipped up around the shoulders, and just, he slowly begins to get it, and he works really hard for that tail to kind of slow down and just kind of wrap around his legs. And he kind of looks over at the dock workers and he looks back at you and he says, Is that right?
It's a very good start. Now, I've given you a little bit of something. If you want to get a little bit more, and I still have my hand not clenched in a fist, it's sort of clasped over the coin still, but he knows it's in there. Why don't you tell me who you've seen coming in and out tonight while you've been here? Seeing as you're such an excellent observer of things.
It's the normal crowd. I mean, I get dragged in here all the time. It's usually my only form of entertainment when I can, listen to the bard sing. But he's drunk tonight, and we just got here a little while ago. What do you mean? What do you mean? Who are you looking for?
So you know the regulars then? Did you see anyone who's not a regular?
Yeah, well, there was this Corvum that was here earlier today. When we first got here, he was walking out, but he was really drunk. I'm not, and it was unusual because that wasn't the only Corvum I've seen. They aren't very common down here in the city, but I saw another one. He was talking to that Gerbine that was talking to the barkeep over there. That was a little later than the other Corvum. And I think they went around the corner and upstairs. And he kind of pauses, and he realizes he may have said something too much, and he's like, "No, I don't know. I didn't see where they actually went."
Well, it was definitely helpful. See, you have a keen eye. That's a rather good trait to have, little one. Right, 2 Corvums. Flashy little fellow. And the rest, you're not quite sure about, right? And I'll wink my eye at him.
Give me a persuasion check.
Ooh, dirty 20.
For the first time, it's like his guard drops for just a second. And he gets lost as you're dancing the coin between your paw. And he kind of looks at it for a second. He's like mesmerized by it. And then he kind of looks you right in the eyes. And for the first time, you feel like you're seeing him be who he is for the first time. And he says, "Are you from here?"
No, love, not from here. Not even close.
I was born here. I don't like it, but I was born here. I was abandoned here. I don't know what happened to my mom, but I was sold, and now I'm in the service of someone very bad. And he kind of looks at you, and you can see that his eyes are sort of tearing up just a little bit. And he says, I don't like what he makes me do. I don't like the things that he has me involved in. I want to escape, but I'm afraid. How can I leave here? How can I be like you? You're not from here. How can I be not from here?
Find a ship. Find a ship and someone willing to take you on. Get on that ship, work your arse off, and don't ever come back, if you can help it.
He's kind of powerful. This, and he looks away, and you can see that just the darkness on his face comes across. And as he does that, and he just kind of looks, you can see that the scar on his face becomes more pronounced as you realize it was a blade that was used to kind of cut, and it was done, at an age where it was going to leave a mark for a really long time. It was just, and you're just taking it in, and he kind of looks back at you and he says, "If I help you, will you help me?"
Can you sneak away?
Not right away. He's busy right now. He's got something that he thinks it is of great value. He just made a deal, sort of, but he tricked the person. It's hard under his watchful gaze right now, because he's got his eyes on all of us. When he goes for his pleasures, that's when it's easy enough to not get in trouble. That's when I can take a moment and go play with the other children.
I'll look over to the gentleman, sneering, and then quickly hiding it.
No, ma'am. No, that's not him.
That's not the one.
No, it's one of the Corvum that I spoke of.
Is it now? Interesting. Well, I'll tell you what. I don't plan to be here too long. Not if I can help it. There's something a little stronger than chamomile, my dear. I just happen to have a little bit on me.
You're not speaking of poison, are you?
No. Well, too much. It could be a problematic issue, but a couple dashes of this powder in some sort of drink, a little belladonna, and it'll be out like a light.
Hello, loves. This is Sionnach MacTyre, though some may know me as Mac. Come join me and my motley crew as we explore the seas of Humblewood. Humblewood is an exciting new campaign setting for D&D 5e that includes original playable races, new monsters, magic items, and a compelling adventure for 1st through 5th level characters. You'll love the variety of options you'll find. Available now at deckofmany.com/dark fortunes.
And he gets really uncomfortable. I use something very similar on the other Corvum. It was my suggestion. I'm really. I didn't want to hurt him. I knew that if I did something right, that my master's attention would not be on me for a time.
That's fair. I'm interested in this other Corvum, quite frankly. Where is he?
He's upstairs. He's sleeping off what we gave him, and we bound him. He's gagged. He shouldn't be too much trouble and should be asleep for another couple hours, at least based on the dose that we gave him. He's up the stairs and in the third room on the left. Will you really take me with you?
Here's the deal, kiddo. You get this, and I slip the silver coin over to him. What's a good way to reach you? Something tells me you might be quite helpful while I'm here.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow is a big day. The Razor's Den, there is a quite a fight that is expected. There is a servant who is a hero among the gladiators. He has never lost a fight, and he's fighting tomorrow, and it's being, the Barkers are calling it his biggest battle ever. I have been given permission to go and watch. I love watching the fights in the Razor Den. They're exciting. They're a distraction from. Children are not typically allowed in the vices unless escorted, but my master has brokered permission for me to be able to be there tomorrow.
Right. Large crowd, lots of activity, good distraction. I'll meet you there. First off, though, where upstairs?
Wait here 30 seconds, then meet me at the door. On the second floor, up the stairs. You must move quickly. I'll let you in. After that, I give you any more help, they'll know it was me.
Fair enough. Mind your tail. And I'll lean back in the chair and just sort of prop one elbow up and lean sort of nonchalantly and wave him away as if I'm done with him type of emotion. But as I do it, I wink at him one more time so he knows that I understand what he's trying to convey to me.
Okay. And so he immediately darts, and he darts over to across to the bar, and he sort of slips back behind it for just a second, grabs a bottle of something, and is faster than anybody else can see him, darts back out towards the door and steps outside, and he's gone. No one in the place has seen him at all. They don't take any notice of him at all, as if he appears to be a normal part of the place.
I'll make a point to sort of just sit there and look around, extremely bored, and then get up with a huff, muttering to myself something about loquacious and a no-show and good for nothing, that, or if he's lucky he didn't get the letter, and walk out the front door myself to follow in pursuit, but making sure there's enough time in between the two so it doesn't draw suspicion.
Give me a stealth check or a performance check, whichever you feel is more appropriate here.
All right, got a 13 on that one.
It's enough. As you kind of slip through the crowd, everyone believes you as you kind of slip away and step out the door, and immediately you're assaulted with the wonderful sort of smells of the night air, which is a combination of also sweat and the sea breeze and a briny sort of a smell, along with the smells of ale and cooking meats and other things just sort of wafting along where there are kitchens. And so you step around the building towards the left, and you find yourself running up the stairs, and you see that the Vulpine is just kind of crouched, kind of hidden a little bit. And he kind of looks up at you as you kind of step up to that last step, and he says, all right. And he jiggers the lock with a key, and it pops open. And it swings open, and it's a sort of a dark hallway with one light sort of spilling out from the second door. He says, it's all the way at the end. It's the third door. There's only lanterns in the second room. You're gonna have to grab one there. The workers in the first room are gone for the day. The third door on the left.
Right. Lanterns won't be necessary, but I appreciate the tip. I'll see you at the fight. Make sure you're wearing plain clothes. Bring whatever you feel is necessary, but tuck it under your garments.
Oh, okay. What's your name?
Call me Mac.
I'm Tomlin.
Tomlin, nicely met, young man. Get yourself back to where you need to be, and I'll see you later.
And he darts off.
And as he jogs away, I'll be looking at him with sort of an appraising eye, having noticed how deftly he picked that lock and how quietly he moves, and get a slight smirk on my face as I duck into this hallway and make note of the length and the 3 doors and count my way down towards the third.
As you get to the third door, you find it sort of nondescript with a sort of a lock embedded in it, and a really sort of plain sort of doorknob. When you reach for it and try it, if you do that, it would be locked.
I'll sort of cluck my tongue in disgust. And can I try and jimmy it open?
You sure can.
Okay. Sleight of hand.
Yes, please.
Okay. That's a dirty 20.
All right. So you describe to me how you approach jimmying this open, and then I'll kind of narrate you into the room.
So, feeling that the lock is secured, I'll go up to my hat, the side that's pinned up, and I'll deftly take this little B pin and flip it open. And using the pin's end, I'll jiggle it into the lock itself and just quickly move it around until I hear that audible click and the knob gives way.
Okay, and as you do, you hear the click and it pushes open just a little bit, but the door feels stuck. It's as if the humidity has changed in this particular area, and the door is sort of caught in the door jamb a little bit, and so you have to put your shoulder into it a little bit, and you kind of push forward, and it's not really kind of moving, and so you have to lean a little bit harder and give it a sort of a push and a knock, and it slides a little bit. And you give it another sort of a little bit more of a knock as you kind of like lean into it a little bit more with your shoulder. And it's a second sort of like knock. And then just as you feel like you almost got it, you give it one last push, it kind of swings back and slams open. And in there you see one lantern sort of like dancing sort of in the corner in the background, and tied up in front of you is Mim.
God damn it, Mimsy, can't you do anything right sometimes? Right, keep that up. I'm going to keep the gag in. And I'm actually going to like sort of lean myself up against the door jamb and fold my arms and just quirk an eyebrow at him. If you stop flapping around and stop grousing, I'll untie you. I don't mind keeping you tied up. soon as he calms down, I'll go over and undo the gag and release him from his bindings on the chair.
What happened?
That's a very good question, love. What happened?
I was making a deal. It was going quite well, and then I was drugged and tied up.
Well, then you weren't doing very well at all, were you?
Until the drugging.
Where is it?
Where is what? I don't have it. That wasn't the plan. The plan was for me to make the trade and you to rob the trader.
Right.
I'm now tied up, and the trader went off with it. You tell me where it is.
Oh, this is lovely then. Who'd you give it to?
A Corvum.
Oh!
He was
Yes.
flanked by the Dirk and an inconsequentially muscle-bound servant. And a tiny kid named Tomlin. That's shit.
Nope, Tomlin's actually quite helpful, love.
Tomlin drugged me. It was his idea.
He told me.
Great. You've
But-
befriended my captor.
Well, no, actually, I've befriended the person who's going to get us to the captor to get what we need.
Oh,
I can be resourceful too.
well.
Well, indeed. Right, we might have some means of salvaging this then.
Great. Well, I'm drunk. Still. It's only been... I have no idea. It's still the same day, it feels like.
As far as I know, it's the same day, and you're always drunk.
That's rude, if anything.
No, you just...
Accurately rude, but...
Exactly, you don't like to hear the truth plain as day.
prefer not to hear it at all, ever, if we're being honest.
Well, that's where we complement each other. You like to have smoke blown up your arse, and I like to make sure you stay well fanned.
I don't know why I work with you.
Because I'm pretty to look at.
You got me.
All right.
Now, how do we get out of here?
Down the stairs and out the door and down the stairs.
No, I mean in a way that nets us a gain. Oh, I have a tale to tell for you. Do you know of the Pirates' Code? Well, of course you know the Pirates' Code, but do you know of the Henry, Harold, Hank, Briny Sea Dog? Does any of these words ring a bell to you at all?
I'm trying to make sure they're words in the first place.
They're written-ish.
What was the Bulldog song again?
It was the Briny Bulldog
Right.
was the sea shanty, and they were singing
Hank.
about Hank the Briny Bulldog, who united the pirates under what was known as the Pack, and was written. You know, this is pirate legend, but there was the
Okay.
code of the Pack. That was the laws that by which all of the Pack were governed by.
Any chance you mean Hank?
Hank, the salty sea dog. Yes, he had a book called the Codex of Piratisms. I don't care what it was. Either way, the book secretly has a way to speak to and control an army of undead. The Corvum told me before knocking me unconscious.
So let's believe every word he says.
I honestly can no longer tell if you're being sarcastic.
It's probably best that way.
Okay.
Right. So, get the book.
Yes,
Get the book.
it's hidden.
Well, Tomlin's my new little friend, so maybe Tomlin might have seen it.
Great.
We have a nice
And
little
I won't
meeting.
hit him for drugging me.
Quite frankly, I can see his stance on this right now.
I was innocently delivering a package.
When are you ever innocent?
When I'm drunk. Which is always, according to you.
I'm just at this point, just shaking my head and pinching the bridge of my muzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Let's get out of here. I have a meeting with Tomlin tomorrow. Perhaps we can do a little inside work.
That sounds great. This place is a drag, and they have very terrible alcohol, except for the wine that I had, which was very delicious. And I still have, son of a... They took my wine.
Why wouldn't they take your wine, love?
I don't know. Respect, I guess.
After they've gagged and bound you, you still want a little respect?
I would like some. Is it too much to ask, do you think?
In this particular situation, yes. Maybe in others,
Clearly.
not so much.
Rude ass Columns.
Let's get out of here.
And he stands up and just all the ropes just kind of fall as he moves them off of him and then makes his way towards the door to leave.
Stepping out back into the hallway, you see that it's much darker now, right? From the when you entered the hallway, Mim. And looking down the hallway, you can still see sort of the light sort of dancing out from the second door, from the flickering candles and everything, or the flickering lanterns. But otherwise, it is incredibly quiet up here. Below you can hear the noise and the rancor and the sort of the frivolity coming from the tavern, the establishment, the High Noon. But up here, it's relatively quiet. What are you guys doing?
What's the plan?
Well, considering we're not seeing Tomlin until tomorrow, maybe get you sobered up.
So, sleep.
Sleep, food to absorb some of that alcohol in your system, yes.
Great. Are you buying?
Fine.
Even better. You know what I always say, if it's free, it's for me.
Of course it is.
And so I'm assuming you exit the building and then find your way. Where do you two spend the night? Is it in an establishment? Do you go back to the ship? What is the plan here?
I would probably take us back to the ship, quite honestly, just to be able to touch base and sort of update the contact I have there that it's looking like it might be myself and at least one other small person, if not this one, and kind of toss my head back over to Mim.
Your contact sort of, your contact looks at you, and as you're kind of having this conversation, and it's a Strig who is working on this merchant ship that you've kind of come on and been a part of and docked, and the Strig secretly works for the Pirate Queen along with you. And as you sort of convey your information back to them, her response is that you'll have to be very quick. The ship is going to leave just after midday tomorrow. If you can't be back here by midday, she can't guarantee that you'll have passage for yourself, let alone anybody else.
I'll nod my head in acknowledgement. Right, I wouldn't expect you to delay things for me. It'll raise suspicion otherwise. Appreciate the time frame, though.
And she thanks you and she says, "Glad you understand," and passes off some rations and says her good night.
I'll turn to Mim and hand him a portion of the rations, a greater portion of the rations. Get this in your system and see if it sops up some of that excellent wine.
It was such a good vintage. I wish I had some to give you, but I don't because it was stolen by curs.
I thought it was
and
a
he
cool
just
of them.
rips into whatever she just handed him. This is actually pretty good. I can't complain.
Waking up the next day, you are woken very early in the morning, just after sunrise, as there are calls all around the ship. Cargo is beginning to be loaded. And you hear rigging, and you hear the yells, and you hear the songs of longshoresmen and of sailors working together to move cargo onto a ship, shifting the heavy cargo down into a cargo hold. And this is very laborious kind of work. It's a lot of backbreaking work. And so there's a lot going on and there's a lot of distraction, giving you both an opportunity to kind of just slip away off the ship back on, into the city proper. And so as you find yourself beginning to walk from, where the ship is berthed into the docks, already you hear the barkers calling from both directions, both north and south of you along the docks, just letting you, know, come to the Razor Den, epic fight. Auryn will be triumphant again. This his biggest match ever, and it goes on, and various sort of like lauding of Auryn the gladiator, Auryn the magnificent, Auryn the mighty servant, the hero of the people, kind of a thing. Just large, sort of like gregarious, sort of just big announcements as you're making your way from the docks through the market. Again, same thing. As you're essentially starting in the early morning here, is there anything that the two of you want to do before we kind of find yourselves moving towards meeting up with Tomlin?
So what's the plan? We wake up, have a large breakfast, meet your contact.
If I don't feed you, are you going to get hangry?
I don't guarantee that.
Fine. We'll get you some breakfast. I need to restock up on a few little herbal supplies. And then we'll get ourselves over to the fight, meet up with our little contact, and see if we can get some more information as to where this book might be.
Dinner, breakfast, a fight, and stealing? This is a great day.
Yes, I'm spoiling you today, aren't I?
You have no idea. Why I should do business in this side of the world more often.
Yes, maybe you should.
Maybe I will.
I'll just smile.
Lead on, my dear.
And then start making our way towards probably closer to the market, I would think, instead of down where the vices are. See if we can find sort of a eatery of sorts where there is no alcohol.
So you would find yourself very, very much after walking through what's known as the Anchor in the marketplace, rather than going directly through the scales, you would actually go south into the southern part of there's like a sub-district of the market that's known as the Sickle. And there you would find various offerings of fruits and vegetables and baked goods and meats and other things. This is very much sort of a farmer's market quarter, sort of an idea, but much more on a grand scale. Meat pies are offered, baked sweets, various types of wines and brews from a more of a sustenance sort of a approach to things than directly a sort of like an offering of alcohols to get you, sort of inebriated. And you're able to pick and choose, and you find very much anything that you would ever want, because this is a huge trade port of things coming in. So you're able to find things that you would find in the Humblewood. As you're making your way through, the crowd's excitement is palpable. Everybody is talking about the big fight that's going to happen at Razor Den today. Everybody wishes they could be there. Everyone talks and tells stories and tall tales of the times that they've seen Auryn sort of have this, they've seen him fight where he defeated, this creature or that beast or this opponent or this set of opponents. He is just the people's hero. He's the people's champion. And as you're kind of making your way and moving through, just all kinds of stories are happening. And you know that the first bouts will start somewhere in late morning. What would be, sort of like 10 o'clock would be the first sort of like warm-up bouts of things kind of happening, and people would start making their way there. And the barkers are continuing to talk about it, at various distances. You can see that the sons, the sworn guardians of the city, are very attentive and very alert. The different nests that you see all throughout the city as you walk through, all appear to be well manned and are well, that are well, stationed, and there are many, sort of the folk who are working there, at least 3 to 4, paying attention to what's going on around. It's palpable, the amount of excitement and energy and possible sort of, erupting point that could come from sort of this event. And so as you continue to make your way and finish your breakfast and making your way towards the vices, you can see that, even in the vices where often the streets are not as full as other areas, there are droves of people moving towards. None of them children. Children are forbidden to be inside of the vices. And so as you're kind of making your way, there's just this other palpable excitement, and you hear people drinking and singing songs and singing a song about the victory of Auryn as you kind of make your way generally in the direction of the Razor Den. So the Brothers Vices is a district divided into 4 sub-districts. The Brew happens to be on the eastern side. The Curtain happens to be on the western side. The Poppy is on the northern side, and on the southern side is known as the Coin. The southern sub-district is where all the gambling happens. And that is also where you will make your entrance into the Razor Den. And so large crowds are sort of funneled, towards the north end of the Coin as you pass various gambling establishments and make your way and move sort of towards this big arena, but you don't see any structure. There's no like physical structure that stands up tall. And it isn't until you arrive at sort of the gates where you realize that it's a coliseum inserted into the ground. The ground has been dug out, and you find yourself sort of looking down into it once you give your copper, and you kind of make your way sort of like into this particular setting, and you're overwhelmed with the masses. There appears to be 5,000 humble folk seated, and there are still spaces, and people are kind of funneling in. But just as you're stepping in, you take a sort of a scan around. I need a perception check from both of you.
That's an 18 on my end.
That's a 6. You see, Mim has never been in the Colosseum, and there's a lot of barkers and stories and colors and smells and sounds and inspiration surrounding him. This place is a location equivalent to a muse, and he is quite distracted by all of the goings-on.
Mim is also a little hungover. The noise and the cacophony is just a little overwhelming for him. As you can see, there are various pendants being weighed and sort of thrown. It takes you a little bit of time, and the fights have already begun with lesser battles. But after about 15 minutes of slowly sort of circumnavigating the outside of the Colosseum lip, you finally locate a Corvum seated in what looks to be a boxed section. And he appears to be watching sort of the goings on and chuckling and drinking a little bit. And behind him, flanked to his right, is a servant, quite large, 10 points. And he's just kind of, the servant is kind of looking in and assessing the situation. And the Corvum is just sort of laughing. And there's no one else in the box besides Tomlin. And Tomlin is seated next to him, kind of he's looking up at the Corvum, and then he's looking at the match every time the Corvum kind of looks to his direction. And when the Corvum looks away, he darts around and looks to his left and looks to his right, and he's looking over his shoulder. And occasionally the servant notices it, but just kind of dismisses his his odd behavior. And you can see outside of the box are flanked 4 more individuals of bird folk who are also Corvum. And they're just sort of standing there as a personal guard of sorts. Taking in this situation, what do you do?
I will move slightly closer so I know I'm in visual range of Tomlin, and also make sure that Mimsy dear is behind me.
Have you seen this place? This is a miraculous little, look at this. There's
Yes.
fights going on and everything. This is neat.
Neat.
I don't have to use fancy words every time.
Yes, but it's you.
But it's just you.
Oh, thank you. I love you too.
He like tips his hat a little bit.
Look,
Yes.
I'm going to try and get our little friend's attention over there.
Where?
No, not saying, because if I say anything, you're going to sit there and start clawing your head off and draw attention to us.
Rude.
Truth.
Go on. Either way.
Look, stay around here. Don't go too far. I'm going to move a little bit closer, see if I can get his attention.
Okay.
However, it looks like our little friend who has the book doesn't exactly travel light in terms of companions.
Okay.
And this could get interesting.
Don't get killed?
Don't get killed. Don't draw attention to yourself. I know the
No,
second
I'm telling
part's
you
hard.
not to get killed.
I'll be fine. You're the one I'm more concerned about.
I'm mostly sober.
Debatable. Look, just stay right here, okay?
Deal.
Great. And I'll just sort of like pull my overcoat more closely around me and shoot a look over my shoulders to make sure that Mim is actually doing as was asked.
He looks over and makes eye contact and just nods at you, and then goes back to watching the fights.
You'll see me sort of like shake my head, and just the plume on my hat will sort of give a little hint to the fact that I noticed the gesture. But I'll get closer into Tomlin's range and sort of stand to look like a spectator, but I'm keeping an eye specifically on him so that when his gaze comes over towards me, I'll purposely take my tail and lift it up and sort of wave it slowly back and forth, hoping that'll catch his attention.
Okay, so I have a question for Mem. When she tells you to stay put, do you just sit down or stand up and just take essentially a space along the benches that sort of run along, and along the sides of the arena or the sides of the Coliseum, and just kind of stay your place there?
No, Johnny.
Of course.
I do stand there. I do stay there, but I don't like. I am doing my best to like lean on like what I assume is like some kind of like guardrail of some kind, right? But I'm not watching the fights. I'm leaning in a way that I can see out of my side bird eye. I'm watching whatever Sionnach is doing as she kind of goes up there and does whatever she does. So I'm keeping one eye kind of rotated on her and watching her as she goes.
So you watch her step down toward where the box is, down the steps, moving towards. And as she does kind of step, she stops. And then you can see that her tail is swishing, and she's kind of just paying attention, but of also looking off to the side. And it's as you're kind of focusing on her that you see a blur of motion coming from your other eye, and it draws your focus sort of back towards that direction. As you see the Dirk sort of standing there just a couple of steps from you. And he says, "Well, aren't you a slippery little Corvum?"
Only when wet.
And we cut to Sionnach looking over towards Tomlin, as Tomlin is just kind of, being really attentive to the idea that the Corvum sitting next to him is kind of paying attention to him. The 4 other Corvum that are flanking this box are sort of lost in the crowd a little bit now that you're sort of standing at sort of like the same eye level. Like there's a bunch of spectators in other boxes around you. But for a moment, like it passes, like there's like an opening among the crowd, And you see Tomlin kind of look over at you. And for the first time, there is no panic on his face, and he smiles. And then you hear the cawing laughter of the Corvum just erupt, in something that just happened as the crowd sort of gets all crazy and wild as well. And the Corvum turns as you're watching this. Tomlin just lingers on your gaze just a little too long as the Corvum turns, looks down at Tomlin, and then slowly raises his head, his beak angled towards you, and his eyes narrow. And that's where we're going to end it.
Dark Fortunes is an unMadeGaming production and a proud member of the Don't Split the Podcast Network. If you'd like to learn more about the world of Dark Fortunes and get some behind-the-scenes looks, please go join us at Patreon at patreon.com/unMadeGaming. Thank you for joining us on this high seas adventure, and we'll see you next time on Dark Fortunes.